Shalom, Israel.
Shalom.
Shalom, everybody online. Welcome to another live class. We're here at 231 FM 1092, Stafford, Texas, 77477. We got class Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. All the information is going to be on the screen, okay, for all our other locations and class time. So please take a look at that. We have, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because we go through it all the time. We have Hanukkah on November the 27th to December the 4th. It's an 8-day feast. We won't be online for those days. We'll do class the 27th, which is a Saturday, and then we'll be offline until the 4th. All right, so if you're local, if you're in Virginia, Houston, San Antonio, Rochester, and you want to congregate, you want to commemorate the feast, feel free to give us a call. My phone number is 303-557-8979. You can reach Priest Kazakia. His phone number is 757-330-4047. All right, so you can contact us with any questions on the feast days or any questions or concerns outside of the feast days. We have our businesses. We have Sweet Ambiance, and we also have Israel Wear. Okay, so make sure you go to sweetambiance.com. Make sure you go to isbhpk.com/fringed up to get that info. Or you can check out the screen, and it's all on the screen. One more thing with Hanukkah. We're doing a Hanukkah raffle, right? There's a Hanukkah raffle, and that's starting when? The
on
night
the first
of,
day. It's every night.
right, so for the 8 nights of Hanukkah, we're going to be doing a raffle, and the winner will receive 2 fringe shirts and a headband. All right, so make sure you get your raffle tickets. That's another way for us to raise money for the school. 1 ticket, $5, 3 tickets, $10, 5 tickets, $15. So the more tickets you buy, the cheaper it gets, the more chances you win. All right, so that's going to be starting on November the 27th. I'm sorry. Any donations you'd like to give? Again, we'll put the flyer up. We do need the help. We had to make another payment for the Passover location. That was about $700. The location is about $4,500. So we pay it monthly to get it out the way. If you'd like to help out with that, you can do so by depositing money into the Wells Fargo account. You can Zelle us. You can Zelle, PayPal, Cash App, however you want to do it. All right. I think I covered everything for the most part. All right, for the announcements. So I was 2 Mondays ago we were doing a class. We were doing the Zechariah chapter 5 breakdown 2 Mondays ago, and we were going over a block of scriptures, and there was a scripture that really stood out to me, and it put an idea for this class that we're going to go over. It put it in my head to go over this class, and this class is going to be probably 3 separate classes. Okay, the title of the class is, what is it? The systematic
Destruction of the Black Nuclear Family in America.
Right, the systematic destruction of the Black nuclear family in America. Now, that's Black, Hispanic, Native Indian. For the shortened title, we just put the Black family. So we're not leaving out Issachar or our native brothers and sisters, but what I want to go through is show how Esau and the nations systematically broke us down and caused. There was something that they did 70 years ago, back in the 60s, that's having it's blossomed now. So what I want to do is go through this class and point by point all the different things that Esau has done from 1939 all the way to 1960, all the way till now, that destroys. Anybody know what a nuclear family is? Anybody know what a nuclear family is? What is that? What's a nuclear family? mother, father, and children, right? So we're going to go through and dissect how did the world, not just the white man, but how did the nations systematically destroy the black nuclear family? Okay, so let's get a few scriptures. There's a lot of what?
Why do they call it nuclear?
Nuclear family? We'd have to look it up. I'm not sure why they call it that, but that's what it is by definition. You said what? Like what? I can't hear you.
Nuclear or nucleus?
Okay, center.
Foundational something.
Right. But by definition, it's a mother, it's a father, and it's whatever children they have. All right? So let's get a few scriptures. There's a lot of references that I'm going to go to. I did a lot of reading for this one outside the Bible. I watched a lot of documentaries for this one outside the Bible. I had to watch a lot of documentaries on the 50s, on the 60s, on the 30s, on the 40s. I had to do a lot of reading. I had to look at people's interviews about the times because I wasn't around in that time. 1950s. I was born in the 80s. I was born in 1981, so I wasn't there, and a lot of us are not old enough to be there. You'd have to be at least 60, 70 if you were born in 1960, right? So that was 40 plus 20, 60 years. So nobody in here is 60. All right, so had to go through a lot of different references to just reference the time of what was going on. And I think what we go through is going to shock a lot of you. It's going to shock a lot of us. So
Shock me.
go to what's the first scripture I want?
Psalms chapter 83,
Go ahead.
verse 1.
Right?
Keep not thou silence, O Most High.
Right?
Hold not thy peace,
Go ahead.
and be not still, O Most High. For lo, thy enemies make a tumult,
Right?
and they that hate thee have lifted up the head.
Right. The ones that hate Israel, they lifting up their head. They're figuring out how can we get on top? What is it that we can do? Go ahead.
They have taken crafty counsel against thy people.
And it's more crafty. It's more crafty than you ever could imagine. It's super crafty, and that's what we're gonna go through is what level of craft and witchery and trickery was the white man on? Go ahead.
And consulted against thy hidden ones.
Go ahead.
They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation.
Right, because before you can have a nation, what do you have to have? Don't you have to have families? Right, so to cut a nation off, you cut the family structure down. And once you cut the family structure down, once you break up that nucleus, right?
Or heart or core.
Or core, once you break down the core of something, then what? The rest of the body is weak. It's like your core. If your core is weak, your center is weak, there's no power. You can't put pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, right? So everything else is rendered useless.
Yeah.
All the other members are rendered useless.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That the name of Yasharallah
Right.
may be no more in remembrance.
Right. So we always got to remember that this was the goal. This was the goal from the onset. This is the goal in the middle, and this has been the goal now. How do we wipe the so-called Negro, right, off the planet? How do we wipe the so-called Mexicans and Native Indians off the planet? Well, physically they can't do it, right? They couldn't beat us physically. They couldn't outwit us. So they had to put systems in place that would benefit them and further our destruction. Mm-hmm. All right, for anybody that walked in a little bit late, the title of the class is the what?
The systematic destruction of the black nuclear family in America.
Right, the systematic destruction of the black nuclear family in America. And in parentheses, I have 1939 through 1959. Now, like I said, this is going to be, I'm trying to go through this because this is going to be a 3-part class. This first part Very, very important. Very, very important for the next two parts.
Con.
All right, so where you at?
Verse 5. For they have consulted together with one consent.
Right?
They are confederates against thee.
Right, and we can see it. We can see it in everything that's done throughout the world, that the one consent is that black people are niggers, they're monsters, they're dirty, they're bad, right? Mexicans are lazy. The brother that they what's the cat? Aubrey, the one that they're having the trial for right now, that the two Edomites shot. What was their first thought? Oh, he was running through our neighborhood and stealing. Move over just a little bit so I can see. They were running through the neighborhood. He was running through the neighborhood and stealing. He was just out for a jog. But what do? He's a thief. Let's kill him. Because that's the mentality of these people. We always got to remember that.
Yeah.
Remember what it said about Esau. What it said about Esau in Genesis 26, right? It said it comforted his heart. Just it put him at ease and at comfort, just the thought of killing Jacob. So imagine when they are able to execute their thought, how much peace and ease they're at. But not only is it Esau, it's the multitude of nations. Go ahead.
Psalms chapter 83 and verse 6.
Right?
The tabernacles of Edom.
It's going to give us the nations. Edom, go ahead.
And the Ishmaelites
Right?
of Moab.
Go ahead.
And the Hagarim.
Go ahead.
Gabal.
Right?
And Ammon.
Right?
And Amalek.
Go ahead.
The Philistines.
Right.
With the inhabitants of Tyre.
So you know what's crazy about this? Because you have sons from Shem, Ham, and Japheth in here. Tyre is Ham. Amalek is Japheth. And Esau is Shem.
Oh, I'm looking at Esau. Ashkenaz is.
Oh, Slot. Ashkenaz is Japheth. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm glad you called that. Ashkenaz, right, is that's Japheth.
Yeah.
Right. This says Amalek. Okay, so scratch that. But y'all see the point. No matter what, it's a confederate. We're all in this together against them. All right, so let's go to the next scripture.
Isaiah chapter 32, verse 7.
And this is where the idea for the class came, just off of this scripture right here. Isaiah 32 and verse 7. Read.
The instruments also of the curl are evil.
The instruments of the churlish are evil. A churlish person is a fool. Like Nabal, say he was churlish. It's a fool. It says the instruments of them are what?
Of the curl are evil.
Are evil. They have these evil instruments. Go ahead.
He devises wicked devices.
They do what?
Devices, wicked devices.
Right, they've created wicked devices. Go ahead.
To destroy the poor.
To do what?
To destroy the poor.
To destroy the poor. Go ahead.
With lying words.
With what?
With lying words.
Yeah, because they'll say one thing, but then do the complete opposite. They'll tell you one thing, like the scripture said, well, I think we're going to get to it. It said his words were smoother than butter, but in his heart was full of deceit. Right? Because that's the motive of these nations, is to give you the smoke and mirrors, right? The politics. Hey, we need the black vote. We need the black vote because, we got to take care of the black community. Then as soon as you vote them in, what happens? They go sign a bill for the Asians to get protection from their oppressors. And they don't sign nothing for us. Where's the Stop Negro Hate? Where's that bill? Like, think about the smack in the face that they literally wrote a bill for a minority group that they've been oppressed in America. Don't get me wrong, but not like us. They came here as indentured servants in San Francisco, building the railways, building up their towns. They were able to build and have their own towns, Chinatown, little places like that. But they came as indentured servants being paid for a job. And they felt a little bit of oppression. And then now, fast forward years later, they get a bill to protect them from hate speech, from violence, where, guess what? We still getting hung. We still getting shot. We still getting pulled out of cars. Because why? There's a confederation against us. The wicked devices, they're not for our benefit. So they're not going to make a bill for you. I love it. Biden's not going to sit back and have 15 pens and sign his name to a bill to protect black folk and protect Mexicans at the border and protect Native Indians in their land. Hell no. You know how many Native Indian women go missing per year in America? It's in the hundreds of thousands. It's in the hundred. They got a documentary on, man, they just came out with this documentary, and it's highlighting the kidnappings and abductions of Native American women and girls. They're like the highest abducted group that nobody is going out looking for them. But the little white girl that got lost in the mountains the other day, they had the whole world looking for her. Why? Because the Confederate is about their own. They ain't for us. And these everyday instances, those are the things that are supposed to highlight that. Don't y'all see that? When the little Native Indian girl goes missing and you never hear about it, check mark. Most High ain't playing. What the Most High said is real. Oh, and then nobody looked for her? Oh, there's another check. Oh, she's been missing for 10 years? Oh, unsolved? Oh, okay. And it's not just her, it's about 100,000, 40,000, 50,000 a year. Whew. Didn't even know there was 50,000 Native girls in America, but there is. Once things happen on those reservations, bro, nobody can go in there and investigate, so things go unsolved. Y'all gotta look into that. Go ahead.
Even when the needy speaketh right.
Even when the needy bow down and speak right. What's the job of the churlish? To create devices to further oppress them, to bring them down. So what we're gonna go through, listen, we're gonna start. When did the Emancipation Proclamation, when did that start? Who knows the date? 1860 something. Bam. 1863 is when it started. And if you know about the Emancipation Proclamation, it wasn't the freeing of the slaves. It was basically, you don't have to stay here and be oppressed, you can go be oppressed in other places. That's all it was. It wasn't a freeing of slaves because they didn't free us. They just let us go and travel and be oppressed by other white people in the north, other places in the south. So that's what that was about.
That's like, so they talk about slavery in the South a lot, but when we went up north to New England and Maine and all that area, all their houses look like slave houses as well. Like they're all built like that.
Yeah, that old southern
Yep.
plantation style. Well, because they had slaves all through America.
Yeah, they just don't talk about it.
No, they don't. They don't talk about it. And what it is, they kind of got off of that hard bondage a lot earlier than the South, because the South was still on cotton picking and those different type of things, right? Go from there. What's the next scripture?
Jeremiah chapter 11, verse 19.
Right?
But I was like a lamb
Right?
or an ox
Go ahead.
that is brought to the slaughter.
Because this is how they do us. We're like a lamb and an ox that's brought to the slaughter, man. Go ahead.
And I knew not that they had devised
Right?
devices against me.
They did what?
Devised devices against me.
Yeah, well, who? Edom, Moab, Ammon, the Hagarenes, the Tyrese, Zidon, right? Any white man today that goes under Polish, British, German, Dutch, all of them. Go ahead.
Say, let us destroy the tree.
Let us do what?
Destroy the tree
We're the tree, man. Go ahead.
with the fruit thereof.
How do you destroy the tree with the fruit? Well, I got one. Just destroy the roots. Just destroy the root. Just expose the roots. And guess what? The whole tree will be cast out. This is what they did to us. They uprooted us. They uprooted us in our family structures. And literally, the fruit is some of us. Who in here had a single parent household? Yeah. See that? Put your hand down. What does Max got his hand up? Right? Now, put your hands up again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. What is it, about 14 people in here? And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 out of 14. What's the percent on that? What is that? Good 70, 75? 75% of us in here, right? About? A little bit more? Yeah, probably 89%, 90? But that's staggering. That is amazing. Did you have your hand up? No, because you got both.
No, I have both, but
I have my hand up.
But this is the crazy part though.
15.
The ones that had both, like we easily could have not had both too. Like ours, the ones that had both, the parents fought for it. You know what I'm saying? Because I remember my parents. There was a lot of times when they looked like they were gonna split.
Right.
You know,
because of the things they had to do and go through and yeah. But think about that number, man. About 90% just in this building alone had single parent households because you're the fruit of what happened 60s, 70s, 80s. We're that fruit. You see that? So from there, if I'm going too fast, just slow me down. I want you to go to Ezekiel. So what I want you to just put a little point before this Ezekiel. Put a little point and put just put a little bullet. I didn't put one. You can put the dry bones rise. And has anybody been through Ezekiel, the 37th chapter breakdown? Yeah. I did it before. I might have to do another one. But Ezekiel 37 is talking about the dry bones, and literally, I'm going to give you the actual breakdown right now as far as like short, because we don't got time to go through the whole thing. But basically, it's talking about Israel in a decayed state. And what happens is they start to be restored. Okay? And there's a time period in history where we literally started to get restored, but there were certain things that we were missing. So, Ezekiel 37 and 1.
Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 1.
Right?
The hand of the Lord was upon me, and carried me out in the spirit of the Lord.
Go ahead.
And set me down in the midst of the valley, which was full of bones.
Right. That valley is America. That valley is America. All the black and Hispanics and natives that are out there suffering, they live in a decayed estate. They're those dry bones. Go ahead.
And caused me to pass by them.
Right.
Round about.
Read.
And behold, there were very many.
There were very many. Read.
In the open valley. And lo, they were very dry.
Go ahead. Dry. Why? Because our people lack wisdom. Our people lack knowledge and understanding. We lack accountability. We lack sensibility. We lack the faculty to make our situations better, or at least we act like we do, right? We're quick to run to folly and vanity, and we have no spiritual sense of the Most High. Go ahead.
And he said unto me,
right?
Son of man, can these bones live?
Right, can they be revived? Go ahead.
And I answered, O Lord God, thou knowest.
Yeah, only the Lord knows, right? Only you know, Lord. Read.
Again, he said unto me, prophesy upon these bones.
Right, prophesy upon the bones. Go out and teach them. Go ahead.
And say unto them, O ye dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord God unto these bones.
Go ahead.
Behold, I will cause breath to enter into you.
Right, we know the breath is the wisdom of the Lord. We can read that in Wisdom of Solomon, the 7th chapter. Right, the breath is the wisdom. So what is it saying? Well, Israel is in a decayed state. When did the truth start to come out in America? Well, back in the 60s. Late 60s, early 70s. Go ahead.
And ye shall live.
And ye shall live. Read.
And I will lay sinews
right.
upon you.
Go ahead.
And will bring up flesh upon you.
Go ahead.
And cover you with skin.
Right. The sinews, the flesh, those were symbolic. Sinews are tendons that hold muscle together. And then flesh covers up the bone and the muscle to protect it. The sinews, the flesh, the skin, those were symbolic of the law, our heritage, all those things bringing us together. Now,
Bringing us back to life.
yeah, bringing us back to life. You know, in the '60s, what did you have? You had the Black Power, the Brown Pride. You had the marches for civil liberties. You had there was a lot going on in the '60s for Black people.
There was a lot of different movements.
A lot of different movements. There was the civil rights. There was it was really civil rights. There was women's liberation.
It was like a revolution, and it wasn't just here in America. It was all over.
Right. It was all over.
It happened all over the islands, all over South America.
Well, that's where they started.
world.
That's where they started. Like civil rights, like women's rights movement didn't start in America. It started in France, like in the 1800s, and then it carried over into America. A lot of things did not start in America. They were started in other countries. Viva la Revolution, right? Che Guevara and all that. That bled over here into America. Then when America's fighting Vietnam War in the 60s, what's going on? Well, people are hating the war, right? They're hating the government. So there was a lot of civil unrest and uproar. But the beautiful thing about that time was that that's when we began to get a sense of self. We began to get a sense of pride. We began to, remember, we're just getting up out of slavery. The hard bonded slavery. The Emancipation Proclamation was 1863. So let's fast forward to 1939. This is when you started to have an influx of Black people moving from the South and moving to cities like Chicago, cities like New York, Philadelphia, San Francisco. Listen, at one time, San Francisco was 80% Black. San Francisco, 80% Black. Chicago, 80% Black. New York, these cities, I'm talking about the cities. The cities. Remember, San Francisco is a city, not the state of California. The city, because Black people were moving into the cities to get certain type of jobs and to live in certain type of housing. Okay, so this started in 1939 and went all the way till about 1950. So a good what is that, 22 years? 11, no, 40, 50. That's a good 11 years of Black people migrating from the South to the North, right? Why? Because slavery is not abolished, but people know they no longer have to be a slave for free and work for some white man. They know they can go up north and get these different type of plant worker jobs, right? Chicago, Indiana, Detroit, they call that the Rust Belt. The Rust Belt is where they had all the steel mills and power plants and factories. Right. So a lot of our people, the majority of our people were moving to these places to get this type of work. Steel work, factory work, and they paid them amazing wages. Watch. Where you at?
Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 6.
Go ahead.
Last precept, you want to keep on reading?
Read.
And ye shall live,
And ye shall live. Go ahead.
and ye shall know that I am the Lord.
Go ahead.
So I prophesied,
Right.
as I was commanded.
So go ahead.
And as I prophesied, there was a noise.
Right. We started making noise. We started to come together. We started to build things. We started to get an economy going. We started to have our own neighborhoods in these different cities like New York, Chicago, South Philadelphia, all Black. Places like, again, San Francisco was 80% at one point Negro. You thinking about San Francisco now, you're like, how? That's all white gay people. Well, that's what you call gentrification. That's what you call moving people out the way to get the better land. And San Francisco is known more now for what? Architecture? Is it in history, like historical buildings? Yeah. Historical buildings. They got a lot of art and different things like that. The trolleys. Remember the trolley? That whole trolley system. That is basically like architecture and history, and I think they try to revive it this year or last year during the pandemic because it's a big part of it. It was a big part of their history. The trolleys. Some of the buildings out there, a lot of famous architects built a lot of those buildings. So Esau, they were going to reclaim that, right? But think about this. What city do you go to when it's not majority black? What, like the city? The city. Like when I remember when I went to Rochester. When you get into the city part of Rochester, it's nothing but blacks and Hispanics in the city of Rochester, right? The outskirts is Esau, because they like the suburbs, right? They like the suburbs. Now, a city like Houston's a little bit different. But think about it. Isn't Third Ward the city?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the city.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Third Ward is the city. The outskirts is Sugarland, the Woodlands, Pearland, right? But Houston is so big, it's hard to really get a grasp on who's where and things like that. A city like New York, when you go to Manhattan, when you hit a certain street in Manhattan, it's all blacks and Hispanics. When you go to Harlem, ain't no white people up there like that. Bill Clinton, he got an office, big deal. They built a park, but the majority of the time has been black folks running and living in these cities, because that's what started back in the 1930s all the way through. They came up for jobs. So let's talk about it real quick. So I watched. You could drop that. There was a documentary I watched on YouTube. It's called "The Negro Industry in 1952," and all you got to do is just watch. You really got to write this down, or you can. There's some really good points. So, in 1952. Somebody guess how many banks black people owned and operated in 1952? Take a guess. How many?
30?
30? 10?
Say 45.
45? This is 1952. We just coming up out of slavery. We just getting our things together. 45?
1,
1?
3,
3? What you got? Give me a number. Huh?
9,
None? I like that. That's a good answer. What?
4,
4?
15,
15?
I'm gonna go with
0?
10.
10. So we own 14 banks with total assets of $33 million. This is black people. These are not FDIC funded white banks. These are black banks that black people owned and operated and employed other black people. This is 1952. Check this out.
Can you say that number one more time?
We own 14 banks with assets of $33 million.
Which was a lot of money back then.
$33 million. Remember, the average family in 1952, the average middle class family made about $5,000 per year.
Yeah.
Per year. Because things didn't cost what they cost. Now, you go to a dinner and a movie for 5 cents. A movie and some popcorn,
Street, yeah.
it's like 25 cents for the whole thing. So things weren't what you go get a bag of M&Ms from the movie theater and it's $19. And the ticket's another $30 for you.
Yep.
And the water is $2.50. No, it wasn't like that. The inflation is insane right now. So they made about anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 per year. But we had assets just in our banks of $33 million. We had life insurance companies with assets of $175 million. So what does that mean? If I needed a loan, I can go to a black bank as a black person. If I needed life insurance, I can go to a black life insurance company as a black man or a black woman and deal with my own people. And they have the assets to be able to pay out these different things, because when you pay your insurance, that's where they get the money. We had 27 savings and loan businesses, $20 million in assets. So that's what would help other black people go and get loans for housing, or get loans for businesses, loans for cars. So 27 saving and loans businesses, about 20 million in assets. We had, at that time, there was about 5 or 6 black owned and operated newspapers with black men black women that ran and operated these newspapers. One of them was called the Pittsburgh Courier. Black owned. The editor in chief was a black woman. Some of the writers were black women. This is the 50s. All right. There was one black owned radio station in America, in Atlanta. It was called WERD. All right. The only black owned radio station. And that was out of Atlanta. Now, I didn't look, but I'm pretty sure there's no black owned radio stations today. There's probably 0 black banks. There may be 1 or 2 sprinkled. There may be a few life insurance companies. But this is the 50s. See, what happened was when we came up from the South from 1863 up into the early 1900s, we were given these different opportunities. And we took on these jobs, these labor jobs, these steel and plant worker jobs that, for one, Esau wasn't doing that. The white man wasn't doing those jobs. If they did, they were the managers, they were the supervisors, the superintendents. They were that. So they was doing their thing too. But the literal plant workers, that was us. But these jobs pay great. Now check this out. Again, you can go watch this document. It's not even that long. It's 30 minutes. It just goes through all these stats of what we had as black folks in the 50s.
I just looked. I thought it was 10.
10 what? Oh, it was about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But I watched a few, so I got another one. So check this out. I watched this other one on YouTube. It said the title was, in the 1950s, inner city black communities were strong. That's the title. In the 1950s, inner city black communities were strong. I'm giving you the titles because you could always go look it up. So what I did was, I just wrote down what this man said. I got a direct quote. I went to the TV, turned it up, put my phone on record, voice record, and it wrote down all the words that he said. So I'm going to read this real quick. Now, this is a man that grew up in the 50s as a child, giving his account of black neighborhoods in the 50s. Check this out. So he lived in South Philadelphia. He said, in South Philadelphia, we didn't realize that we were segregated, because we were. We had our own neighborhoods. He said, we didn't realize that we were segregated. All we knew was that black people owned the store down the street. You had a black tailor, black restaurant owners, black undertakers, right? Morticians. And everybody in the neighborhood was black. Everybody worked blue collar jobs, and essentially it was a very close-knit neighborhood, right? He said everyone had at least 4 children. Everyone had at least 4 children at this time, right? Very important. He said we played in the streets together. He said on Saturday morning we had to go buy ice because there was no refrigerators. So they would have to go buy ice in the ice box, keep things cold. We had a coal stove, so the younger kids were responsible for putting the wood in the stove and keeping it going. Check this out. He said the level of interest in education was astounding. He said, even to this day, I don't think I've ever had such a positive educational experience that I had in my first 6 years. He said, because school was an integral part of the community. He said the superintendent was black, the principal was black, the teachers were black. So remember, you got black people coming up, moving into their own neighborhoods. We're segregated at this time. But everywhere you went, if you went to the store, black people. Whatever business you had to conduct, you had to do it with your own. Right? So what does that start to create? It starts to create this vacuum of people getting good jobs but only spending money with their own. Yep. Right? Yep. Everything you did. I'm going to read on what this man said. He said, I remember that in the 3rd and 4th grade. He said, that, when they had plays for the children, like the children were performing plays, he said they were always conducted in the evening so that parents could attend. Because that was a thing, a big thing to boost the morale of children. You got to play, we're going to be at the play. Check this out. He said, an auditorium that seated maybe about 400 to 500 people was standing room only for 3rd and 4th graders to watch their children. do plays, right? This is important. This is very important right here. Up until 1959, 78% of all black families had a man and a woman in them. 78% of black families were wife, husband, and children. 78%. So you had 28%, 22%, give or take, of unmarried, right? Single parents, right? For whatever reason. Remember, people become single because a loved one dies, divorce, and those different things. But remember, at this time, there was no divorce.
Right.
This is what we got to understand. There was no divorce at this time. You didn't, irreconcilable differences, I'm gone. Hell no. You stuck it out. Somebody had to die for you to be divorced. This is how they literally lived. This is how we literally lived in America in the 50s.
You know, also too, what could have added to that 20% single rate was that World War II ended in 1945.
At World War II, the war also, people died, right? A lot of the men went to the war, because remember, we fought in the war at that time. We fought in World War II. We were just segregated in the war. We had our own barracks and all that stuff, but a lot of our men went, black, Hispanic men went to the war, and they fought in Vietnam. They died.
You just said something too about like how you didn't divorce.
Huh?
You said something too about how we didn't divorce.
Right,
This
right.
morning I was in Kroger's, and I was getting a shopping cart. This Judite lady, man, she was old. She was like, how you doing today? I'm like, I'm doing good. I was like, how you doing? She was like, I'm good. I'm happy to be alive. I was like, listen, I'm good. I'm retired. I'm divorced. I'm like,
Yeah.
I was like, you're divorced? She was like, yeah, I got divorced after 40 years. I'm like, 40 years? And then she was like, yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm like, are you?
Yeah. Well, she is, because,
It's crazy.
and that's what this whole class is going to lead to. Is showing the disparity in divorce and marriage between us and other nations, and there's things that Esau has put in place to destroy that very institution of just forget it. But we know that we don't believe in Esau marriage, right? Paper. We don't do all that, right? But just having a man and a woman in the house with their children, right? You don't have that today in our communities, right? Because guess what? I'm gonna hit y'all with this stat. 80% of black households are single parent. Look at the reversal. 80% was married. Now 80% is single parents. Think about that. That's 70 years later. That's insane to me. I'm gonna read on. He said, teen pregnancy was frowned upon. Kids, they were having sex. Kids were having sex, but they didn't really talk about it too much, is from what he was saying. He said if someone became pregnant, and if there was an aunt in the South, they would ship her away to the South. Now, me and him was talking about this. I remember that growing up in New York. One minute you see her, you hear that she got pregnant. The next minute she's gone. She got down with her grandma somewhere. Because what they were trying to do at this time was keep the appearance of morality, right? You didn't see at this time black women walking into a church with just them and their child. You couldn't go to church and walk in as a single mother. Y'all know that, right? They'd get that woman hellfire. They would pull the law out on her. Sis, where's your husband? Remember the time when a woman would go into church and if her skirt was too short, they go get the sheets and cover up her legs? Now, see, that's from these times and before. Now, you go to church, look at how some of these pastor women, the first ladies is dressing like hoes, right? Now church is a haven for divorce and single women. There's really no black men in the church like that. When you really think about it, that's why the church is falling apart, because there's no men in there to hold it together.
And also when you look at there's no Israelite men in the church, and when you do see an Israelite man in the church, I forgot who I was talking to about it when we was on the truck. When you see an Israelite man on the church, he's extremely soft.
Yeah, he's a sissy.
He's extremely soft and
Sis.
timid and tender.
Yeah.
I remember we was working on the truck on a Sunday, and I seen a cat walking, and I was like, man, you can just tell he's a church going man. You can just tell the way he looked. And
Yeah.
it was, like his appearance, man, it wasn't masculine anymore.
Because church is about catering to the women, and a lot of men in there are tender. They're tender, and a lot of men that are really about just structure. One thing, man, men like structure. There's no structure in the church because women are able to run wild. Like, a woman shouldn't walk up in the church half-ass naked and be able to sit there and nobody say nothing. Who's keeping the standards? But they at least had an appearance of some standard at this time. I'll finish reading. For people living in these, he says, if someone became pregnant and if there was an aunt in the South, they would go there so that the moral standards and ethical standards for the people living in these communities appeared extremely high. It had little to do with income. Many of us were poor without realizing that we were poor. He said, the discipline was in the community. You didn't speak back to an adult, and the thought of disrespecting, or the thought of an elderly person being disrespected was just unheard of. And teachers were never disrespected. If you misbehaved, you would be spanked by your neighbor. When your mother got home, when your father got home, he beat you. He said you were spanked by them, right? Now, I remember that. I remember getting beat at school in Jamaica. Got beaten at school, went home, got three more beatings. You just got beat down the block. I remember that because they kept this more old school, traditional, but as opposed to even now in this time. Think about how many TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat videos you see kids cussing out teachers and fighting teachers, disrespecting elders, disrespecting their parents. He said it was unheard of to disrespect an elder, somebody that was just older than you, right? God forbid a teacher should ever have to send for your parents and they had to take off work. He said that was it. He said the discipline didn't have anything to do with the money that you made. He said there was a sense of comfort, a sense of well-being, a sense of oneness between the school and the community, right? Where now parents are fighting against schools, schools fight against parents, right? There's this separation of church and state, right? Remember, there was a time when you prayed in school, right? There was a time you prayed in school. You did the Pledge of Allegiance, and then you prayed. Then they took away, in the 90s or whatever that was, they took that away, but there was a different standard. Now, remember, he's talking about black folk in the 50s. Now, I'm gonna go to this other one. Now, I think a lot of you have probably seen little excerpts of this one, The Secrets of Selling to the Negro in 1954. And they threw out a bunch of excerpts on Facebook, and really when you watch it in its context, this right here highlighted some things about the black community that were astounding. So check this out. So this goes in and is basically urging white people to cater to black people's needs when they come in to shop. And he starts out, he's like, look, there's this new market. There's this new growing market of people. And he says, yes, this new market that we're talking about, the new Negro family. Their name is Wells, Wilson, Smith, Brown, Alexander. They live in Chicago, Atlanta, New York, Detroit, St. Louis, Los Angeles, and thousands of other American towns. He said, the tremendous buying power in this group is backed by increasing earning power. The average Negro income is at a record high since 1939 and has increased more than the average income of all Americans. Negroes living in these cities bring home a paycheck 4 times bigger than the one he collected in 1939. And his total income of about $15 billion a year. That's how much the black economy was worth in 1959. 1954. $15 billion. Just black people. In that time, we were the middle class. You had upper, middle, poor. You know who were poor? white people and poor people slaves in the South. You had poor whites that were going through the Depression, going through the war. Then you had poor blacks, but then you had the middle class of people. Black people made up the majority of middle class in America. Then you had upper class or rich, which we know that was mainly white folks. You probably have dollars to spend. Now, this was the, who was saying this? I'll keep reading. At this time, more than 51% of blacks own record players. 78% had electric refrigerators. Check this out. The Negro spent $3 billion a year on food. That's what he spent as a whole. $3 billion a year on food. They buy more cosmetics, drugs, and toiletries than anyone else in the country. And their children are better educated too. Because since 1930, the enrollment in Negro colleges was up 2,500%. So we were not only the highest earners as a group, we were also the highest educated. Guess what we had? We had the, what is it, HBC? The historically black colleges, HBC, right? Did I say that right? HBU, historically black universities? Colleges? HBC? Yeah. But we had our black schools at that time. But enrollment was up 2,500% in 54. Check this out. It says in 14 major United States markets, the market is like LA, New York, Detroit, 14 markets, a product could not be number one without the buying power of the Negro. So if we didn't buy it, that product sat on the shelf. So if it was the AC and it was a Maytag, if a nigga said, let's go get the Maytag, guess what? Everybody, that Maytag, their stock went up. We dictated the trend. What does that sound like? Now, the sad part is they say that our economy today is worth about $15 trillion. So it went up about it went up a few billion since in 70 years, right? But see, check this out. These are the keys to selling to the Negro customer. He said of all the things that I'm telling you, there's one thing you have to remember, and this stuck out to me. The Negro family does things together as a group. Now, this is a white man saying this to other white men, recognizing how black people live. The Negro family does things together as a group. The family works as a unit. They live as a unit, and it buys as a unit. When you sell to one member of the family, you're going to sell to them all. Now, they were going in and talking about why black people like to get name brands. And they were saying, well, because the Negro has been underserved and they've been sold cheap products all the way from, emancipation until that time. So we went for name brands because there was more quality in name brand. You see that? We didn't want to be sold the cheaper watch because it was cheaper. We wanted a good quality watch. But see, now we do it for what reason? To floss. Because the name brands these days are garbage. Nikes are trash, right? Nikes, they last a few years, and then that's it. Well, you got other brands that'll last longer, but you get it for that status. We didn't buy things for status at this time. We weren't trying to compete with white people. You know why? We weren't around them. We weren't around white people. You see that? But think about this. If I have an economy and white people, black people, and I'm running my dollars are funding the economy. Now I look over and I'm like, God damn, these niggas got more, their money is more than ours. And our economy is suffering, but theirs is bolstering. What are you gonna call for? What are you gonna want? Remember, we're separate. How do you get that money? Integration. So one of the ways they got us was they integrated us because they wanted our dollars. It wasn't nothing else. They wanted us to spend. Remember, if I spend in my community, it says, they talk about black money compared to white money, how it circulates. Then they say a black dollar these days will circulate 8 times the white money. Because what do white people do? They get money, they spend it with themselves, they hold it, they save it, they this, they that. Niggas get $1, Basically, if I spent $1, if I marked $1 and spent it, it'll hit 8 hands in 1 day, as opposed to white people. It'll probably take 8 days for that $1 to move. That's the difference. Money moves a lot faster in our communities because it burns a damn hole through our pockets. At this time, the money was only circulating through our community. So wait a minute, we gotta start selling to these Negroes. 15 billion? They were doing like literal censuses, and they had like, when you watch this documentary, they had the chief, his name was something Weeks. He was like the chief of money or something for the United States government. And he came on this documentary and he was like, listen, take care of these Negroes. Sell them what they want. They'll shop, they'll buy, they got money. You gotta watch the documentary, it's about 30 minutes. Secrets of selling to a Negro. What was he saying? Check this out. 1 out of every 3 black families in America own their houses. 1 of every 3 in America own their houses. He said the Negro paid his obligations more faithfully than any other economic group at his level. So when we had loans, we were more apt to pay than white people in middle class. We didn't default on loans. So he said, look, give them credit, give them loans, because they'll pay their loans back. That's how much money we were rolling with. That's how bolstered. Somebody look up Black Wall Street. That's how bolstered the economy was at that time. Somebody tell me when Black Wall Street was. Because we're thinking like, oh, Black Wall Street was this anomaly. But it wasn't. We had Black Wall Street everywhere. Oklahoma was just one of the cities. Right? Because that's where Black Wall, Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? When was it?
May 31st, 1921.
1920s. So what the hell was going on from 1920 all the way up? We were making money. It just that it wasn't circling through the U.S. the way it circles now. It was in our own economy. And white people start seeing that. They start getting pissed. They literally were like, look, we need this money. This is the way. He ended the documentary saying this is the way our economy will survive. Is by integrating their dollars.
Ours would have survived though.
But guess what? Ours, we didn't need to be integrated. You know, a lot of these men that you listen to from the 50s and the 60s, you know what they were fighting for? As opposed to Martin Luther King? These men were fighting for fairness. Meaning what? One man said that he went to a bus station to buy a bus ticket. And he stood there for 30 minutes and missed his bus because they didn't want to sell him a ticket. They didn't want to sell him a ticket because he was black. We didn't own bus stations. We didn't own trainways and rollways, airlines. So they were fighting for the ability to buy things that were needed to be able to get around and not to integrate. He said, listen, we don't want to live in your communities and we don't want you to come live in ours. We want to be able to buy the things that are necessary that we don't have in our communities. Get a bus, like he said that he stood there for 30 minutes while the dude at the counter sold tickets to all white people for the bus. And he said he missed his bus and everything, couldn't get to where he was going. So that's what they were fighting for, that fairness to be able to get services and goods that weren't in the community, not to be a part of white community. The majority of them didn't care about being in white community. Remember, he said it. They were at peace, they were at oneness, we had community, we had discipline. But what happens when you blend with the beast? The righteous is more excellent than his neighbor, but the way of the wicked seduce him. We started to get seduced by their filth, right? Yeah. So they use segregation as a tool to get to get the benefits of our economy.
Oh, integration.
Right. Integration or desegregation. Right. Right. There's another thing. Go to Ezekiel. Go back to Ezekiel 37 and 8, because we had all this. We had this sense of community, this oneness, this blackness. But what did we not have? Read Ezekiel 37 and verse 8.
Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 8.
Go ahead.
And when I beheld, and lo, the sinews and the flesh came upon them.
We had our black power, our brown pride, we had our jobs, we had our buying power. Go ahead.
And the skin covered them above.
Right.
But there was no breath in them.
There was no what?
No breath.
So we had no wisdom to keep these things together. We didn't have the wisdom to say, wait a minute, let's stay apart. Right? Let's stay apart. We're good in our own communities. So what do? Well, it says the devices of the churlish are evil. So how do you, once you start sucking the money dry, or if people are fighting a certain institution, well, let's create another institution. So what do they start to do to these factory workers? Who knows? What do they do to the factories? Right. They start to deindustrialize. They start to ship jobs overseas. They start to trade with, remember, getting steel from China was cheaper than manufacturing it in America. In the Rust Belt, the steel plants in like Gary, Indiana is, listen, I always wonder, why did my grandparents move to Gary, Indiana from Jamaica? One of the coldest damn places in America. But Gary, Indiana in the 60s is where a black person wanted to be. If you had money. If you had money, that's what you wanted to be there, because you had your own community. Yeah, we dealt with racism from white folk. I'm not trying to say that racism and all that stuff didn't exist. But think about it. You had your own community. You could shop with your own people. You go to your own church. You deal with your own life insurance, your own mortician. Everything was your people. So that brought a sense of security. Obviously, when Esau wanted to roll up in your neighborhood and whoop your ass, that's what they did. They roll up in black neighborhoods. But I guarantee you this, I bet you there was more fight in those men. Well, we know there was, because they was out there marching and getting bit by dogs and hoses and standing up face to face with cops. When we do what? We run, we act scared, we get nervous, right? There was more fight in them to where you think you get Crips and Bloods, because they're banding together to protect the neighborhood. Where you think you get the WIC program, Women, Infant, and Children? Gangs created that, feeding the community. And then the white man adopted it and federally funded it, and they get to write it off. You see that? But a lot of these things that are negative now, we created to help our communities. You see that? The Crips and Bloods is a perfect example of that. All these different gangs, vice lords, and they were created to fight cops. That's what they were doing. They were fighting against the cops coming through black neighborhoods and beating us down. But then what happens? Read it one more time.
Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 8. And when I beheld, lo, the sinews and the flesh came upon them.
Again, we had our sense of blackness, our sense of we're Negroes, right? We had the sense that we don't want to be oppressed no more. Give us free, right? We had that sense. Go ahead.
And the skin covered them above.
Yeah, we had our music, right? We had James Brown, we had Marvin Gaye, we had all the Funky Chicken, right? We had all that stuff going on. I don't know what time period that was. Disco, I don't know. Go ahead.
But there was no breath in them.
But we had no wisdom as black and Hispanic people. We had no wisdom on how to defeat the beast, how to maneuver through his wicked devices. So what happens? Well, they figure out, okay, if they're making money, let's just stop them from making money. So they start to deindustrialize the plants, right? So check this out. Got a quick little article. The reason why I'm going through this, because I'm trying to show y'all, how do you go from 78% family, nuclear family, to 20%? There's a system that was put in place to do it. So we take away the money, right? This is an article I read. It's deindustrialization, racial discrimination, and the case for common good capitalism. Check this out. I'm gonna read. It says, as America allowed manufacturing in places like Chicago, Baltimore, Raleigh, and Detroit to dwindle, neighborhoods of color were emptied of decent jobs. Remember, at this time, 1959 all the way through, what were the women doing? What were they doing?
Stay-at-home mothers.
They were what?
Stay-at-home mothers.
What were they? Yeah,
housewives.
they were. Hey, what's your occupation? I'm a homemaker. I'm a homemaker. I want y'all to keep that in your head. That time, because we're gonna revisit that in a few weeks. Homemaker, because hubby went out to the steel mill. He was making enough money to support the entire family. right? One man was able to support a middle-class family where now you need 4 incomes. $15 an hour don't cut it no more. You need 3 incomes to be middle class. The average black man in America makes how much per year? Average.
Average is below 30,000.
No, it's not below. It's actually 41,000 average.
Wow.
Average black man in America. Average man in America, excuse me. What's the average woman make in America? The average woman. What's her average wage? It's about 27,000. It's about 27,000, right? Middle class is what? 50 and above? What is middle class? I don't remember. It's changed. Middle class ain't what it used to be. Middle class income is 50 to 75 to 100,000, something like that. But it's different. It's changing. It's changing because look at the inflation. Look at the inflation, right? So I'm gonna finish reading this.
46,000.
46,000 is middle class.
46,000.
So think about it. $10 an hour ain't gonna cut it. 15 an hour ain't gonna cut it. It's crazy. Let's see here. All too often, job growth in such communities has meant more professional service roles, which tend to be dominated by highly educated whites. Between 1960 and 2010, research shows that those urban centers that have experienced the highest losses in manufacturing employment have also experienced the smallest growth in average wages for black men. Because what happened? Well, we'll take away the plant work. A lot of men stopped going to college to go get these plant worker jobs. Because why do I go in debt to go get some business, some crazy job where I can just go right from high school to the plant, vocation work, right?
Yep.
Make money, but then when they take away those jobs, what happens? I'm not educated. Not educated. Now that we need more technical jobs. Instead of doing this, we need you to do this. Oh damn, I didn't go to MIT. Oh snap, I didn't learn Microsoft Word. Remember when knowing Microsoft Word and Excel was like the biggest thing on a resume? Like you needed that. They don't even teach computers in schools no more.
They don't teach any of that anymore.
They don't have to. A 2-year-old can run YouTube and Facebook like that. They can type text. Come on, they don't have to teach it. Remember there was a time if you didn't know Microsoft Excel, spreadsheets, and how to type a Word document, how to send an email. They had trainings on these things.
I remember that a little bit too.
Yeah, I remember doing school like Oregon. It was Oregon Trail. You had computer lab. You had wood shop. Yeah, you had all these different things. I had home ec. I had baking, cooking, sewing. They don't have those things in school no more. Automotive shop. Yeah, but those things brought a man into his literal manhood of, okay, I can go be a mechanic, I can go be a plumber, I can go be this without college. But we weren't going to college, we stopped. So the wages got lower for us. The result was a jobless crisis for African Americans that is now extended across generations. It made it harder for America to close the racial wealth gap. Because in the 50s, 60s, the wealth gap was getting real close. We were almost tied with white people. That's how much money we were making. Then as soon as 1960 hits, that gap was busted wide open. They shot up to the top and we went crashing. Because we put all our eggs in one basket. Steel mills, plant work, right? We put all our eggs in one basket. We see the effects borne out in drops in black wages and employment rates, as well as a corresponding rise in poverty. Between 60 and 2010, economic statuses lay bare the material decline. In those 50 years, our society saw an increase, check this out, of 8 percentage points in poverty rates for black women, 13.3% decline in wages for black men, 5.6% decline in employment rates for black men. During the same half century, for men, the racial gap increased by 12%. The employment gap increased 3.4 percentage points. I'll go to another article. This is in the stlouisfed.org publications. What is it? A bleak 30 years for black men. Economic progress was slim in urban America. It says the deindustrialization hurt both blacks and whites, but blacks were more affected. One reason is that black men were more likely to be employed in manufacturing in 1970. In Detroit, for example, the proportion of black men in manufacturing decreased from 56% in 1970 to 26% in 2000. More generally, in 10 out of 14 cities, manufacturing employed the largest proportion of black workers in 1970. By 2000, manufacturing lost its leading role in all cities except Detroit. Automakers. The auto industry kept going in Detroit, and they would bounce from Detroit to Delaware to this place. Another reason black men suffered more than white from deindustrialization is that black men on average had a lower level of educational attainment, making it harder for them to adapt to new labor market conditions and to find new jobs in a different industry. Also, as more and more jobs required training beyond high school, black men were in worse positions than white men because of the relatively low levels of education. So check this out. 13.3% decline in black male wages. 5.6% decline in employment rates. Marriage rate decline of 4.6 percentage points for black men. 5.1 for black women. Increase of poverty rate 8% for black women, 9% for black men. For black children. 4% increase in chances of living in a single parent household for black children. So in 1970, it went up 4%. 1/3 of the increase in wage inequality among black men is due to manufacturing decline. So what happens when you take away a man's wages at that time? What did they create? Men didn't have jobs, women weren't working. What did they put in play? Who knows?
Food stamps.
Food stamps. Now, does anybody know the history of food stamps? When they started? The first person to use a food stamp in America was a white person. It was a white woman in Rochester. 1939. They created them. They were called vouchers. You would give the government $4, they'd give you $6. You paid for your food stamps or your food vouchers at that time. They weren't free. So it was an exchange. $4, you get $6, right? And that's how that worked. And it was for poor white folks that were going through, at that time, J. Edgar Hoover, the Great Depression, things with the war. We're gonna let you pay for these things to be able to go buy food. And you had two different food stamps. You had a red and a blue. The blue was for like milk, cheese, butter, things like that, and the red was for like household stuff. And then now let's fast forward to this time, 1960s, 1970s, they revamped the welfare and they offer food stamps to women. No wages are coming in and hungry kids gotta eat, right? So they take away the man's wages. So I'm gonna read this real quick. Consider Chicago, for example. In 1970, 88% of black men had their jobs. The unemployment rate was 4%, and 8% of black men were not in the labor force. By 1980, the number of employed black men dropped to 75%. The unemployment rate was 10%, and 14% of black men were out of the labor force. Things kept getting worse, and by 1990, 71% were employed, 13% were unemployed, 16% were not in the labor force. In 2000, the rate of unemployment for black men decreased further to 69%. That's huge. From 78 to 69, that's 20%. The unemployment rate actually decreased from 13% to 9%. The proportion of black men who were out of the labor force, however, rose a staggering 22%. Another reason black men suffer more than whites from deindustrialization. No, I read that already. Right? Let's go to Luke real quick. Go to Luke 11. Go to Luke 11. So you deindustrialize, you take away the wages, but what happens? Because whoever got the money, he's the man, right? You making the money, you the breadwinner. You got the money, you got the power, right? You're qualified now to run the household. Think about today. Think about most women today that make a substantial amount of money, in their eyes, that is the go ahead, right? I make the money, you can't tell me what to do. I make the money, I ain't submitting. I make the money, you can't make less than me, else I can't be with you. That's the mentality of women today, right? Now, we know that money is not the thing that makes the man who he is. It's the wisdom, but we weren't dealing with wisdom at this time. We were dealing with strictly who was making the money. Who was able to lead the household because of the money. So read Luke. God damn, the time is Luke 11:21. Wow, are you serious?
Okay.
Read.
Luke chapter 11, verse 21.
Right?
When a strong man armed keepeth his palace,
Right?
his goods are in peace.
Go ahead.
But when a stronger than he shall come upon him,
Right?
and overcome him,
Right?
he taketh from him all his armor wherein he trusted.
Our problem is that we trusted in the riches. Our armor was the money at this time, the finances, the ability to go buy our way out of situations. Go ahead.
And divideth his spoils.
Psalms 49:6. See, they were able to take away our armor. Our armor was the money, man. And if only the men were making it, well, how do we replace the man? Well, we got to give the woman the power. Read that, Psalms 49:6.
Psalm chapter 49, verse 6. They that trust in their wealth and boast themselves in the multitude of their riches.
Go ahead.
None of them can by any means redeem his brother.
Yeah, we couldn't redeem our own selves out of these conditions. Because we were all broke. 20% of men lost their jobs. So you got 10 men. 2 lost their jobs out of every 10. Imagine what that's doing to the black community. If 2 out of 10 houses no longer have jobs and they're broke, well, what's going on? Ooh, that's going to start to hit the community hard. Because those 2 men have to go find other means to support their families. But I'm not educated. I'm not qualified. So what do? Read on.
Nor give to God a ransom for him.
Go ahead.
For the redemption of their soul is precious.
Go ahead.
And it ceaseth forever.
Go to Psalms 52 and verse 5.
Psalm chapter 52, verse 5. God shall likewise destroy thee forever.
Go ahead.
He shall take thee away.
Read.
And pluck thee out of thy dwelling place.
Go ahead.
And root thee out of the land of the living.
And that's what happened, man. He plucked us out of this comfort. Jump down to verse 7.
Lo, this is the man that made not God his strength.
Right, because we made money our strength. We made that the thing to be desired. Remember, there was no wisdom in us, man. There was just straight consumerism. The come up. We were the young, budding nation of Negroes ready to spend. Ready to live in high rises and buy brand new cars and washing machine. I got to get me that new refrigerator. That new blender. That new... Right. Whatever was out at the time, right? I gotta keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah, there's TV.
Color TV, record players. The things were expensive back then, man. Go ahead.
But trusted in the abundance of his riches.
Go ahead.
And strengthened himself in his wickedness.
Psalm 62 and 10. Psalm 62 and verse 10.
Psalm chapter 62, verse 10.
Read.
Trust not in oppression.
He said what?
Trust not in oppression.
Our problem is that we had trust in our own oppression. We were being oppressed and we were like, nah, it's going to be all good. Whitey loves us. Look, he's giving us good jobs. We put our trust in the wrong things. And they use it against us, man. It backfired like a mug. Go ahead.
And become not vain and robbery.
Read on.
If riches increase,
Read.
set not your heart upon them.
Read on.
God has spoken once.
Read.
Twice have I heard this.
Come on.
That power belongeth unto the Most High.
Verse 12.
Also unto thee O Yahweh, belongeth mercy, for thou renderest to every man according to his work.
And this is what he was giving us, man. He was giving us the fruit of what we planted. Proverbs 11 and 28.
Proverbs chapter 11, verse 28. He that trusteth in his riches
Right.
shall fall.
Shall what?
Shall fall.
Shall what?
Shall fall.
Go ahead.
But the righteous shall flourish as a branch.
Jeremiah 17 and 5. So what starts to happen? Well, the man starts to fall out of his position of guiding and leading the house, the homemaker. I'm going to bring you the home, sis, and you get to make the home. But now, the man can't maintain the home because the money ain't there. So what do you have to do? Well, now somebody has to lead, right? So what happens? Well, the women start to move into the leadership position. Read Jeremiah 17 and 5 real quick.
Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 5. Thus saith the Most High, cursed be the man that trusteth in man,
Right?
and maketh flesh his arm, and whose heart departed from the Most
And
High.
that's what we did, man. We departed from the Most High. Diving into, we was the biggest Christians back then. Come on, we had black churches, Baptist, Pentecost, agnostic. We had all those different things going on, but were we really keeping some standard? Because we shipped pregnant women to the South so they wouldn't be seen? Right? Were we really keeping a standard because everything was just black? Nah, we weren't. We weren't keeping the Most High standard, so what did he do? Well, I'm going to show you that it wasn't about your blackness. It wasn't about your money. It wasn't about your industry. It wasn't about your economy. $30 billion in banks, and we couldn't get it together? $175 million in insurance, and we couldn't get it together because it's not about the dough. It wasn't about that.
You know what I like about this is that a lot of times you do hear people say, "Oh, we gotta
Economy.
economy.
Independent.
Well, we always heard about Black Wall Street and all that, and about owning people that own their business. But this is another aspect where it was like, damn, we actually had banks. You know what I'm saying?
14 of them.
But it shows that it's not about that. It's never about that, because all the money in the world can't buy you a moral standard.
No.
You see what I'm saying?
Nope.
Or a civil standard.
Nope.
You can't buy certain things in the spirit. And I mean, we have perfect examples of that right now in the world.
Yep.
All these brothers and sisters that got money, but how are they living? All these brothers and sisters that got nice houses and got nice cars and nice jobs, but how are they living? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's the problem. It's always, we got to be economically independent. Well, we tried that. We tried that. You think that Esau in this day and age would let us get to $30 billion in banks? $175 million in insurance, assets? Nigga, you tripping. They'd never let that happen. You think State Farm going to give up their assets for you? Listen, that was the peak of our economic independence, and we squandered it. We squandered it. We didn't use it because we had no wisdom. So what happens? Men start losing their jobs. Women start to replace men as heads of the household. Why? Because the government came in and offered food stamps. Not because women was going out there and working. Let's not get it twisted. Women didn't go out and work like that. They didn't start hitting the job market until the 80s, the 90s. But during this little time where blacks are losing money, people was going homeless, people were getting evicted, crime was going up, right? But the women weren't getting out into the job force like that. They were still at home with their man. Go to Jeremiah 31 and 22.
Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 22.
Right.
How long wilt thou go about, O thou backsliding daughter?
Go ahead.
For the Lord hath created a new thing in the earth.
Right.
A woman
See, it's a new thing. Read.
shall compass a man.
Yeah, that a woman was going to be above her man. That wasn't from the beginning. The beginning, there was equality and then submissiveness. But then now the Most High has it where the woman is above the man. Total role reversal. Why? Well, because we use the wrong things as our power. And Esau, remember, the Most High said the wicked is his sword. So he uses the white man to enact justice, whatever he sees fit. At this time, this is what it was. So what did they give us? They gave us food stamps. So I'm going to read this. This is from the BaltimoreSun.com. And this is an article on food stamps from the 60s. It said, so if a man lost his job, he literally had to leave home if he wanted his children to be eligible for government surplus. Cheese, beans, and peanut butter. That was food stamps. Cheese, beans, and peanut butter. Somehow conservatives persuaded themselves that this encouraged family values. So in order for a woman to get food stamps, there could not be a eligible working male in the house. So I might have just lost my job, but sign up for food stamps, babe. But they ain't gonna give it to me if you're not working. Well, damn, I gotta leave. I gotta leave. Now think about it. If you're a father in that situation and you're literally stuck between a rock and a hard place, get food stamps and move out the house or go rob and steal to be around your family, what are you gonna do? Well, some people chose to rob and steal to be around their family. Some people chose to leave so that their kids could eat. That's an impossible choice. But see, when you're dealing with the impossible man, Esau, he puts you between a rock and a hard place. Didn't one of the curses say the heavens will be brass? The soles of your feet will be iron? You're between a rock and a hard place, man. Decisions. Rob and steal or let my kids suffer or leave. What's that?
Section 8, my husband was talking about Section 8, and like to get Section 8, like you gotta be a single mom with children.
Yeah, you can't have no man in Section 8. Else you don't qualify. Not welcome. I'll finish this. With the advantage of 2020 hindsight, it's very easy to see how the policy had exactly the opposite effect. It accelerated the fragmentation of poor families. In just the time low-skilled factory jobs were disappearing. So the poor was us, because we had those low-skilled factory jobs. It said it fragmented our homes. The expansion of the welfare state in the 1960s coincided with the decline of the factory economy in the worst possible way, because the no man in the house rule actually encouraged the breakup of stable two-parent families. So there's your strike 2. Strike 3, integration, deindustrialization, food stamps. We're in the third thing that has broke up the black family. The third thing. And now, you know what the coldest part? When you look at it, these things are all geared towards women. Their benefit. Their uprising over a man. They're using these things to supplement men and say, you know what, sis? Food stamps could be your husband. No, you know what, sis? Your career could be your husband. No, you know what, sis? Go get educated. That could be your husband. Oh, wait till next week.
I'm not gonna lie, when I met my husband and we were about to get married, like the thought that crossed my mind was like, damn, okay, well there goes a bunch of like scholarships for school, there goes the food stamps, potentially the Medicaid, everything, because they put that fear into you. If you get married, you get a husband, you lose everything.
Yeah, because the system wasn't designed for the family structure. It was designed to get the man out the way and put the woman in position of authority. I'll read this. What's that? Oh, what's that?
No, I had a comment. I had a friend in the world, I will never forget this. She told me, she was like, she's better off without her husband being in the house. We were 19 at the time. She's better off with him not being there because she can't get welfare. She can't, like certain government programs that they give you, she can't get any of that with him being there. She's like, I'm better off with him not even being here. I was like, whoa.
Now she's what you would call a millennial. Manila folder. Say it. I can't say it for some reason. Millennial. You got Generation X, right, which is like 45, 50 and above. You got millennials, right, 30, right, and then she understood that. Her friend understood that at 19. That is freaking insane. That if I don't have no man, I can get government subsidies. But think about it. That was being pumped since the 60s.
Somebody should know that from somewhere.
That was being pumped from grandma to mom to daughter. 3 generations. Right? That's 3 generations. Think about that. And that's why I started out talking about the things that they implemented. We're starting to see the effect now. The true effect now. Because you got so many women in their 30s that, oh, I don't need no man. Oh, I'm just go to school. I'm gonna just get my degrees. So what the hell does your degree have to do with you having a baby and having a man? Well, they showed you how to use these things to supplement that. To pacify yourself, right? So I don't want to jump, but I'm gonna go because there's more. Oh, there's more. Right. Let's see here. So the man in the house rule. That's what it was called, man in the house rule. They also had another rule that they could, like the government, they could walk into your house. It's called the white glove rule. They put on a white glove, and they could inspect the corners of your home. If dirt came on that glove, they could cancel your food stamps. So you couldn't go out to work. You got a bunch of kids. You have to keep your damn house clean, right? Now this is the '60s. A lot changed from the '60s, '70s, '80s, and '90s. A lot changed. Hold on, let me finish this because we're running out of time and I got to get through this. I'll take y'all's questions though, but let me just kind of get through some of this. Let's see here. A long and paternalistic history of punitive regulations had dogged social welfare policy. A classic example of this is the man in the house rule, enforced throughout the 1960s for welfare recipients, including those in public housing. Man in the house rules sought to enforce social norms about who was morally deserving of welfare. Specifically, the rules prevented adult males from residing with mothers and children who received assistance. The rules sought to ensure only women and children who at the time were expected not to work benefited from welfare. Households with adult males were viewed as undeserving of assistance because adult males were expected to provide for their families through work. Man in the house rules enforced through highly invasive inspections. That's when they will pop up, right? And literally walk through your house to see, wait, why you got men's shoes here? Why you got men underwear? Why you got men this? Why you got men that? And they would cancel your food stamps. It was a lot different back then. There was a movie, James Earl Jones. He did a movie in the he did a movie in 19. He might have did that movie in 61. It was talking about that. He was the father that had to leave the house because they needed them food stamps. He had to wrestle with that decision. I'm gonna let you come. Just give me one sec. Let's see here. Check this out. Man in the house rules enforced through highly invasive inspections forced many families to choose between maintaining welfare supports and keeping their families intact. This article extends historical analysis of such punitive regulations into the present by examining. That's something else. So, what happens? Well, the man is out on the street. What's the support system for men? Who knows? What's the support system for men? What was the man's support system? At that time, what was it? Huh? No. What?
Money?
No.
I would say the labor halls.
No.
They wanted them to enlist in the army and stuff like that.
The man's support system was always his wife and his children.
Oh.
But think about it. He's away from his support system. He can't be in the house in order for his children to eat. Remember, they made it so where this was a hard decision. Either I go do crime or I just leave.
It's messed up, man.
Rock in a hard place. See, what we're missing, or what you guys should be seeing, is the craft. Who the hell will put a policy in place that in order for me to feed you, your daddy got to leave? What type of people think like that? Just now they're coming back like, damn, we screwed up. We should have, our bad. Nigga, our bad. We got 80% of children born out of wedlock, born to single families, single women. You're bad? You're bad. But who thinks like that off rip? But remember, crafty counsel, confederate to destroy you. Destroy the tree and the fruit, like it said in Jeremiah. Right? So there's no support system for the man because he can't be around his children. So where is he? Well, yeah, he's hanging out at the local pool hall. He's hanging out on the corner. Where you think niggas hanging out on the corner came from? Hanging out. What would they do? They would get dressed up in suits and just kick it. No jobs, no money. Smoking cigarettes and stuff. And then guess what? You go to Rochester and they put lawn chairs now. Right there. The goddamn sidewalk. A lawn chair, nigga? You ain't got no lawn. It blew my mind when I saw that. I'm like, they ain't got no lawn. They just sit on lawn chairs, lazy boys, and just kick it all day. But that's ain't just Rochester. That's every black community. That's every black community. So there's no support system for the men. So men are doing crime, they're getting locked up. So now you have what? Well, you have something else that comes out in 1960. So I'm giving you all these different things that all happening simultaneously. What's that?
I might have missed this part being in the back. So, if the man was working, were men working at this time?
Yeah, but then they started to take away the jobs. You missed the part.
I missed that part.
Yeah, they
took away-
de-industrialized. They took away they start getting these jobs, taking the jobs away. So the men weren't working. Yeah.
Okay.
Just go back and watch that
Okay.
part. Yeah. But there, what were you gonna say?
I say it's true that they still held that no man rule in the early 2000s when I was growing up. My mom got a house from the government, and it was the only house we ever lived in. And they would do monthly inspections. And she
Yeah.
had my stepdad, and he would just take
All his
stuff
stuff.
and dip.
Yeah, that's how you had to
He
do
would
it.
check our house for the cleanliness, for if he was there, and like making sure it was just us children there.
Going through the drawers, looking at the shoes, look at
Closets.
everything. Why is there men's clothes here? Disqualified. Yeah. Hell yeah, that was real. That wasn't no game. That wasn't no game. So we got a few things happening in the 60s. The 60s was a pivotal time for black people because that was our come up, but it was also our ultimate demise. Because while they're doing industrialization, while they're throwing food stamps, while men are going homeless and being locked up at a higher rate, here comes the feminist movement. Oh baby.
Wow.
Oh baby.
That's true.
The feminist movement. Now, a lot of us, I didn't even realize what the feminist movement entailed. Now, this is the thing with the feminist movement. The feminist movement was already in play. We get into the 1960s is the second wave of the feminist movement is in 4 waves. You got 4 waves of the feminist movement. The 60s was the second wave, which was the most detrimental wave, because this is what it did. Check this out. I just went to Wikipedia and looked up feminist movement. The feminist movement has been an ongoing force throughout history. There is no way to determine when the exact date was when the feminist movement was first thought up, because women and men have been writing on the topic for thousands of years. For instance, the female poet, ancient Scipio, born roughly 16 BC, made waves. No, I don't want that. Here it is. There have been 4 main waves of feminism since the beginning of the feminist movement in Western society, each with their own fight for women's rights. The first wave in the 1840s was based on education. So let's not get it twisted that women didn't have education in America in the 40s. They did. They were getting educated from the 40s on up, all the way on up. So you had education. You had women going to school, right? Not every single woman was a housewife, but there was a majority of 80% compared to 20. It was the right to property, organizational leadership, the right to vote, and material freedoms. Check this out. The second wave was in the 60s. It was based on gender issues, women's sexual liberation, reproductive rights, job opportunities for women, violence against women, and the changes in custody and divorce laws. You know why the divorce rate was so low in the 60s? Because the law was on the man's side. You couldn't just divorce because you felt like it. The law didn't really prohibit it, or the law prohibited it, I should say. Because when a woman divorced, she left, that was it. They changed the law So now when you leave, you get half, or you get a part, or now we can just divorce for any reason, and we can just call it irreconcilable differences. But before this time, it wasn't so easy. Remember, the divorce rate today is what?
50%.
It's 50%
Maybe higher.
in the U.S., but it's 48% amongst blacks. Yeah, super high. Super high. Then you had the third wave was in the 90s. The developing movement promoted a series of new images for women. True womanhood, real womanhood, public womanhood, and new womanhood. These are four characterizations of women that they put women in this feminist movement. The true woman, check this out. The true woman was the ideal woman that were meant to be pure and moral. A true woman was raised learning manners and submission to males to be a good wife and mother. What does that sound like? Sounds like a biblical woman to me. Real womanhood came to be with the Civil War when women were forced to work in place of men who were at war. Now let's be real. That's what they call it, real womanhood, right? And they've got the chick with the muscle. Let's be real. Women were first forced to work where when men went to war? Where? Where did they work?
In the office.
No, not in the office.
Making bullets.
Yeah, they were working in the factories to make war stuff. They weren't like taking other, like, remember, every man didn't go to war. That's insane. Most Americans didn't even care about the Vietnam War. One dude was saying when it came on and they were talking about it, you walked to your TV, you turned the channel. Nobody wanted to hear about that because they thought it was a fictitious war. So most American males, he said, listen, we can get our six-pack on the weekend, watch football, baseball. We didn't care about the war until after it happened. Every man didn't go to war. Every man, does every man go to war now? Right. So it's crazy to think like, every man is gone, every woman is needed to go work. Hell no, they were needed to go work and make bombs in factories, right? Let's see here. The public womanhood came with women being allowed to work domestic type jobs such as nursing. See, women didn't even work nursing jobs like that. That was men. I'll tell you, man. You know what's wild? And nothing against nurses, nothing against them, but and this is in my opinion. It's my opinion. You know, a lot of women that take that job, they get that job and they are some of the worst. They got some of the worst bedside manner. They're bitchy. They're upset. They're mad. They're disgruntled.
Rough.
They're rough. They're jagged. It's not what it used to be. Because think about it. There was a time when they just forced women into that job. It was a way out. It was an escape. It was like, let me just go to the military. Oh, let me go to nursing school. Now, what's the new thing? Oh, I'm a boss. I got my own business. Doing what, sis? Oh, I do hair. I do eyelashes. Like, what the fuck? Like, you're not a boss. A boss has employees. How many employees you got? Oh, it's just me. Well, then you ain't no boss. That's not the definition of a boss. But that's the new thing. Like, you got to see. Watch. I'm going to do it. You got to see it, man. They gave women this access to these titles and to these different industries to do what? To, like he said, to fracture the family structure.
Yeah.
That's why it's so hard. Listen, come on, man. That's why it's so hard for y'all today. You can't be a career woman and a wife. I'm just sorry, you can't be. You can't be a career woman and a mother. No man can serve two masters. You're gonna love the one and hate the other. Let me skip a little bit. Let me deal with this second wave of. So the second wave of feminism was called the sexual revolution. The sexual revolution. This is what they were giving women as men were on the decline. They were giving women the ability to be lesbians openly, homosexuality. They were putting porn on TV. Playboy magazine comes out, sexual publications. Everything was more sexualized. Women right to take birth control. This is when the pill came out. So now they're giving you the right to choose whether or not you have, whether or not you bestow the greatest honor on a man that you can bestow is to have his baby, right? We read about Rachel and Leah. What did Rachel say? Go there real quick. Go to Genesis. What did she tell to Jacob? What did she tell Jacob in Genesis? We just read it a few days ago. It's Genesis 30:1. Read it.
Genesis chapter 30, verse 1.
Go ahead.
And when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children,
Go ahead.
Rachel envied her sister.
Right.
And said unto Jacob,
Read.
Give me children.
Go ahead.
Or else I die.
Or else what?
Or else I die.
Because to have children was life and death in a woman's eyes. What else am I here? What am I here for? What am I here for? I wasn't built to go be a career woman. I wasn't put with this man to that new what do you bring to the table argument. I'm gonna say one thing about what you bring to the table, and you can believe this or you don't. Men don't choose women on their education and how much money they got. We just don't. What's the first thing you see about a woman is her beauty. That's just the bottom line. We do. We look at that, and then we look at, is she going to cooperate and be submissive to what I need? Is she gonna be there for my needs? That's what you pick a woman on.
Yep.
How well does she cooperate with me? Right? Does she listen? Is she gonna keep the order? Is she gonna keep the standard? We're not like, oh babe, you got the plaques? Okay, we can make this happen.
What's the credit score?
We don't like, yeah, that can come in handy down the line, maybe. But
It's what can I build?
for the most part, a man don't want he wants to be able to have a plan or have something, and then you come and you add to it as a help. A degree, all that stuff, it doesn't matter in most, I'm talking about most men. I'm one of those most men. Your degree and all that stuff, it don't matter to me. I said it the other day. I'd rather a high school education and submissiveness and a standard than PhD, MBA, Bachelor's and Associates, right? MBA from HBC with a BBL, and combativeness and discord. I don't care about your degree or your career. Oh, I'm a lawyer. I'm a nurse. I'm a massage therapist. I'm a psychologist. Listen, those are some of the worst women to be with because they're controlling. They have a controlling factor about them. Most women that are psychologists need a psychiatrist themselves. They got mad man issues. They've been through trauma in their life. How can you counsel somebody when you got 50 breakups?
They're weird.
You got 50 breakups, but you counseling a woman about her breakups and you never got counseling? Because this is the thing. You don't need no qualification to get into these fields. You don't need qualification to go be a psychiatrist. You got to know how to read some damn books and pass the test. There's no actual system for a woman or anyone to be a psychiatrist. To sit somebody down on your couch, you don't have to go through. Max, go sit in the back. You don't need no qualifications for these things. These are, I call them escape jobs. I'm going to escape life and go get these jobs. And a lot of women get these jobs, and what do? They do what the system intended for them to do. Discard men. Discard their duty. Not be like Rachel and Leah. Damn, man, if I don't have a family, I'm not fulfilling my purpose. That's all it was about. A purpose. What are the Most High create? It's like, the opposite to that is, if a man don't provide, damn, I'm going to die. Right? You ever
He's a buster.
you ever been in that position where you're a man, but you're not doing manly things in your house, and you're just like, damn, what the hell's going on here? This is weird. You feel less of a man? Because why? You're not doing what you were proposed to do.
Yeah.
You see that? Now, let me finish this. Talk all day about that. We're going to talk about it. Watch. That's what these other classes are going to lead to. This class is going to lead to those other classes. Watch.
If I could just say this real quick, in Colossians, it's one of my favorite scriptures. It says that you're complete
In him.
in Him, right? Through the principle, because He's the guy here in the principality. And it's one of my favorite scriptures because it shows us why we always feel empty and why we always feel lack. Why we always feel like we lacking something. It's because we're not doing what it is that we were created to do. We're not functioning through the principality
Nope.
that he laid out. So because
Nope.
of that, then the unhappiness comes in, or you know what I'm saying?
That's why so many people, a lot of women, they popping pills, they drinking alcohol, they doing the Olivia Pope, big glasses of wine and popcorn. They going through relationships, letting men run through them. Their self-esteem is damaged. Why? Because you substituted what you were supposed to do with what you want to do.
And you just won't. You just was not created for that.
No, you weren't
So,
created.
It's never gonna work.
You weren't created to run a household, wear the pants in the family, take on all the responsibility, have Mother's Day and Father's Day. You weren't created for that, man. Like, how the hell you gonna have a second Father's Day? Like, Mother's Day, you go out, you get 50,000 gifts lining up to go eat, and then Father's Day come around, you talking about Happy Father's Day to me too. I'm both. Like, nigga, stop. But that's the pedestal they put women on. Like, quit it. But then guess what? You can't hold it together. Why? Because systematically they destroyed the man out the house and said, here, sis, let you do it. Now, all those I don't need a man women.
Like the one I met today.
Where are your sons? Where are your sons? All those women in the night, I don't need no man. I don't need no nigga. Right? Because those were like the 30 and 40-year-old disgruntled women. They were 30, 40 years old. I don't need no man. Because from the 70s, the man got beat out the house. Let me finish this real quick. This feminist movement is real great. This is real great. This is great. The sexual revolution, also known as the time of sexual liberation, was a social movement that challenged traditional codes of behavior related to sexuality and interpersonal relationships throughout the United States and the developed world from the 1960s to the 1980s. Sexual liberation included increased acceptance of sex outside of traditional heterosexual monogamous relationships. So it encouraged, sis, live your best life. Hot girl summer. This was the first hot girl summer. This was the first Doja Cat and Nicki Minaj. Go bang everybody. This is what the sexual revolution, feminist movement was about. See, listen, I'm gonna say something.
60s.
I'm a feminist. I believe in women excelling as women in what you were created for. See, feminism that's feminism. This right here, this is destruction. Think about it. The Most High said he created a woman to be with one man. They're telling you, nah, sis, go be a homosexual, do everything outside of tradition. Monogamous, heterosexual. That's biblical right there. That's biblical, right? I'm gonna read it. The normalization of contraception and the pill, public nudity, pornography, premarital sex, homosexuality, masturbation, alternative forms of sexuality, and the legalization of abortion all followed. This is what the feminist movement ushered in. Thank you. Thank you, feminists. You gave us the LGBTQ plus community. That's they daddy, the feminist movement. With the induction of the pill, the second wave feminism, women gained more control over their bodies and sexuality during the 60s. Remember Woodstock?
That's it, free love movement.
Yeah, you could run around free love, bang anybody. Oh, I got a pill. Boop.
Yep.
Boop. See, what I didn't throw in here is when they start throwing AIDS out. Guess what? It was around this time. It was around this time, Houston, LA, New York. Just look it up. Look at the hepatitis to the AIDS correlation. They were using men that had hepatitis. They had the cure for hepatitis in their blood, but they also had AIDS in their blood. And they pumped that through homosexual communities, black and Hispanic. And niggas just start popping up with AIDS. Just go look it up. I think I did a class on that a while back. No, I didn't. But just look it up. There's much information on that. At the same time, many women involved in the feminist movement questioned the traditional gender and sex roles ascribed to them. So now I don't have to be the woman. I don't have to be the homemaker. X that, and guess what? You just made it easy for us, America. Niggas ain't bringing in money anyway. Men ain't bringing in money, so guess what? Now I have to go assume his role. You see how they did this? This is crazy. This blew my mind. Women's liberation movement sought to free women from social and moral confines. So I no longer have a morality towards the things that I do that are immoral. I no longer have a conscience to those things. The moral fabric of this country was ripped piece by piece in the 60s. Not that it was moral anyway. I mean, it was beast anyway. But there was a higher level of morality in those times.
Crazy.
Right? Developments in gay rights movements occurred during the same time period. Here's the correlation. Listen, it ain't no coinky-dink. Right? Such as public demonstrations and protests to challenge discrimination against sexuality. Some activists began celebrating homosexuality, but the movement did not really take off until the Stonewall riots in 1969. Right. So let's deal with this real quick. I'm almost done. Yeah, I'm almost done. I want to talk about abortion and the pill. Because what's happening now that there's no man to guide me, because all the men are in jail, on the street, most of them, right? I mean, I'm dealing with black men. Black communities are in the tank. Women are now free to get high. Love is love. Sleep with whoever you want, man, woman, child, be a homosexual, be a lesbian. Because at that time, that's all it was homosexuality and lesbianism, right? They didn't invent, or they didn't really talk about sleeping with animals yet, and pansexuality and all that stuff. They were still doing it, though. So now that that's going on, well, I'm banging all these men, but I don't want to have all these babies. So guess what I get to do? I get to take the pill. Oh, snap. That didn't work. Now I get to go get abortions, right? So now, check this out, abortion. This is usatoday.com. Racism, eugenics, Margaret Stranger deserves no honors. But consider, so you guys know who Margaret Stanger is? She's the woman that, she was like a woman that was into eugenics. And she founded, it wasn't called Planned Parenthood at the time, but that's what it is now. But she was into contraceptive, she was into birth control. She was born in about I think she was born in 1860, and she was into that. Remember, Hitler was into eugenics. That was the foundation of his beliefs. Pure race of people. So consider Stanger's own words. In the article titled A Better Race Through Birth Control, she wrote, given birth control, the unfit will voluntarily eliminate their kind.
Damn.
So if you give them the option, the unfit will say, oh yeah, I'll do that. Right? In a letter, in 1939, a letter to Dr. C.G. Gamble, Stinger urged him to get over his reluctance to hire a full-time Negro physician, as the colored Negroes get closer to their own members, and more or less they lay cards on the table, which means their ignorance, superstitions, and doubts. So they didn't want to hire black doctors. She's urging this doctor to hire black doctors to convince us to do what? To abort our babies. Just like the Tuskegee Project, it was a black nurse that convinced all those people in that Tuskegee experiment to take the shot. So what she said is, get over it. Hire a nigga, because they'll convince other niggas to do what they need to do concerning abortion. Let's see here. Like the abortion lobby today, Stanger urged Dr. Gamble to enlist the help of spiritual leaders to justify their deadly work, writing, we do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. And the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members. So if they start to uprise, go get Pastor.
Just like they do here.
Go get Pastor. And he'll get them right. Why? Because we followed man more than the word. That was the problem with us. What Pastor said? Well, Pastor said this. Well, Pastor said that. We were slaves to Christianity. In the 70s, when the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade, you know about Roe v. Wade? You know that woman is still alive? The Roe v. Wade woman? Her daughter, yeah, this is the 70s. So the Roe v. Wade, well, Roe v. Wade, or Roe, I believe. Roe versus Wade. I think Roe is the woman, but her daughter is still alive. Yeah, they did. I watched an interview with her the other day. She hates that the fact that she was the first. She hates that case was based on her, whether or not to abort. Then the crazy part is her mom went and had abortions after that. Yeah, crazy. Roe v. Wade decision legalized abortion. Polling showed that blacks were, check this out, significantly less likely to favor abortion than whites. Check this out. Yeah, in New York City, more black babies are aborted than born alive each year. That's amongst blacks. And the abortion industry, think tank notes that the abortion rate for black women is almost 5 times that of white women. This is a YouTube that I watch. Why the most dangerous place for the African American is the womb. Interview with Tyler Childers. 52% of all African American pregnancies end in abortion.
Damn, that's high as hell.
Damn.
52% end in abortion. Since that's 1,700 abortions a day. 1,786 abortions a day. Since 1973, over 20 million African Americans have been killed by abortion alone. 20 million since the 70s. So they opened it up in the 60s. Niggas was like, remember, she said it. Given birth control, the unfit will voluntarily eliminate their kind. We were unfit to be parents. We were unfit for anything, and guess what we did? Well, I want to have sex and party, and I want to be tied down by this relationship, by this responsibility. I ain't got no man, right? So what I'm going to do? I'm going to abort the baby. So abortion was given to us. Where we at? I'm almost done. Damn. I read that. This is WallStreetJournal.com. What's not in doubt is the outsized toll that abortion has taken on the black population post-Roe. In New York City, thousands more black babies are aborted than born alive each year. The abortion rate among black mothers is more than 3 times higher than it is for white mothers. According to a city health department report released in May, between 2012 and 2016, black mothers terminated 136,000 pregnancies and gave birth to 100,000 babies. That's 1/3 of the babies were born. 1 out of every 3 was born, so 2 out of every 3 were killed. By contrast, births far surpassed abortions amongst whites, Asians, and Hispanics. Nationally, black women terminate pregnancies at a far higher rate than other women as well. In 2014, 36% of all abortions were performed on black women, who are just 13% of the female population. How the hell are you 13%, but you do almost half the abortion? Why? Because what was being pumped into the woman's head at that time? It wasn't family. It wasn't being traditional. Oh, you can do what you want. You're liberated. You're free. Sexual revolution. Ain't no man. You know, you gotta ask yourself this. White women belong to white men. Asian women belong to Asian men. Right? Indian women belong to Indian men. Who do black women belong to? She belonged to the streets. No, but really. No. That's a real true question. Think about it. I was being funny. But think about it. No, I want you to think about it. White women belong, when you're like, oh, white women belong to white men, because you don't hear them saying, I don't need no man. No nigga can tell me nothing. Put my clothes on. What the hell are you talking about? This is my body. I can do what I want. Right? Indian women. You don't hear that from them. Chinese women. Japanese women. The only women that don't want to be controlled are our women. It's our women. I don't need no man. You ain't gonna tell me what to do. I'm independent. Young, proud, and free, right? But look, It's because of things like this. They didn't do this to Chinese women. They didn't do it to Japanese women. They didn't do it to Indian women. They did it to our women. And it gave them this sense of freedom, again, that is now, it's now catching up. Think about it. If the average earnings for women in America is about $27,000, from 65 to 85, how does a woman live? That's retirement age. You need about $1 million to live between, you need anywhere from $1 million to $2 million to live those 20 years to be able to pay, to live, to keep up a lifestyle, a middle class lifestyle. You need that type of money. Where does a woman that's only making $30,000 get that? I read an article of a woman, black woman. She was talking about how not having a man made her almost homeless. When she hit that age, she was down there on the streets. Go to Skid Row in California and go look at how many women are on Skid Row, opting for that because they have nobody to partner up with, right, and share resources with. Just think about it. It costs money to retire. What happens when they exile Social Security? What happens? And you need $1 million to live to pay your finances. Oh, I know. Well, I know. My daughter is going to help me. My son, right? Because that's what they all think. That's what they all think. Like, oh, my kids is going to get me. But what about their lives?
And they can barely help themselves.
And then if you're training them to be like you, how the hell are they going to help you?
Because a lot of grandmothers,
No.
a lot of grandmothers raise their grandkids.
Yeah, but they raise them to be like them, single and disgruntled.
You know that same woman I went in Kroger, she was like, yeah, being retired is nice, but I just don't have the same amount of money as I did when I was working. I was like,
no, you don't.
And then I'm thinking about what you said. Well, I was like, well, you just divorced your man. More than likely, he was retired too. So both of y'all would have been getting the retirement checks.
Retirement money, and you
Maybe
team that up.
Maybe you would have been better off.
Yeah, your lifestyle has to go down. Think about it. Even a woman making $50,000 a year, right? For her to maintain a $50,000 a year lifestyle, you're gonna need from 65 to 85. You're gonna need $2 million. Do that math. Do 50,000 times 20. You're gonna need that money. But where's it gonna come from? Because retirement cuts your money in half. How are you gonna maintain that lifestyle? How are you gonna maintain the car, the house? You can't. But see, they push women into this hole of you don't need no man. You don't need nobody. I had a great debate at my house last night. And it was a good debate. I'm not gonna get into it, but let me finish this real quick. But we were talking about men and women who could live longer without who. Let me ask y'all a question. If you took every woman out the military, does the military stop?
Nope.
If you took every man out the military, does the military stop?
Yep.
Hell yeah. You took every man out the U.S. military, the military is not a military no more. It's a bake sale. You take the women out the military, and guess what? Men are going to keep trucking on because we built the militaries. We're built for war. Women are just riding the coattails, man. They ain't built for war like that. We're built to go out and war and fight and bring back the spoils. Tells you that in 1 Ezra. That's what we do. That's what we've been doing in this world. This whole world, that's what we've done. Men have modernized the world and civilized the world for women. Women don't even understand how good y'all have it. Take men out this earth. Oh my gosh. Woof. You guys wouldn't even you wouldn't live out your days. Women live to 80. Men live to 70. Why do men live less than women? Right, because we take on the harder jobs, the more dangerous jobs, the more stressful jobs. Y'all were supposed to sit up in the house and bake cookies. Blueberry. Right? Apple pie. Remember the days when you walked into the house and you were like, whoo, pie.
Yeah.
First of all, none of us remember those days.
At grandma's house.
Barely, right? Your grandma seemed like more traditional. Did she work?
No.
Or did she sit at home? Traditional homemaker? Yeah, his grandma, just looking at her, your dad's mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just seemed like a traditional woman of home making the house. So his house, I'd love to go to his house. Walk, damn, Granny, what you making? Right, like Gene Cleaver. Right, just, oh, what is that? I got a question. See, I'm about to put you on the spot. Who in here got a cookbook? Women? Women only. Who got a cookbook? Got a cookbook? Cookbook?
Online.
Okay, cookbook. Okay, I'm gonna put y'all, now, I love y'all. How many recipes you got on the top of your head?
I would say like,
That if I said, listen, go to the store right now, you need to get things for 7 recipes, or you need to get things for your recipes. How many you got? Without Google, without anything.
I probably have like 8.
Okay, what you got, Angela?
About 5 or 6.
About 5 or 6. What you got?
I said 7.
7. What you got?
7.
Because if anybody said less than that, I'm stoning you. Because if you only got 4, what about the other 3 days? A man gotta eat daily. But imagine those homemaker women that were every single day. Breakfast, snack, dinner, 7 days a week. The upkeep of the house was that was their main job, and they loved it. They took pride in it. The problem is women don't take pride in what they were made to do. But men don't take pride in what they're made to do. It's a slow reversal of, I gotta take pride in doing the manly things, but I don't want to cut the lawn and wash the cars and do the fixing of things, that type of stuff. Because TV, football, video games. Oh, I don't want to be the homemaker because that job doesn't bring me, there's no glory in that. That's the greatest glory. I'm jumping. Let me finish this real quick, and then we're going to be done. All right, let's see here. So, 36% of all abortions were performed by black women, who are just 13% of the female population. A little discussed flip side of reproductive freedom is that abortion deaths far exceed those via cancer, violent crime, heart disease, AIDS, and accidents. So there's more abortions than AIDS, accidents, cancer, and heart disease. Think about that. That is insane. Over 100,000 people die of cancer in this country per year. You mean to tell me there's more deaths from abortion than cancer? Especially when you got 1,000 different forms of cancer. Lymphoma, lung cancer, throat cancer, thyroid cancer, foot cancer, that cancer. But there's only one type of abortion. Kill the baby and get it out of you. It's insane, right? But they allowed us a way to diminish our population, to diminish our strength. Racism, poverty, and lack of access to healthcare are typical explanations for these disparities. But they're not. It's bad choices. Don't lay with that man. See, it's a woman's choice. Remember, every baby born in this world that's the choice of a woman. Listen what I'm saying. Every baby born, that is at the discretion of every woman. She made the choice whether to or to not. Let that settle. But black women have much higher abortion rates even after you control for income. Moreover, other low-income ethnic minorities who experience discrimination, such as Hispanics, abort at rates much closer to white women than black women. Because think about it. Even though Issachar is the same as us, even though Ephraim is the same as us, they still are more traditional. They do things a lot more traditional than black American women. They just do. Even the way they marry. You got older Hispanic men dating and marrying younger Hispanic women. That was always what we did, right? You didn't go for your age because there was nothing that your age could do for you. A man your age can't do nothing for you. Wealth-wise, experience-wise, knowledge-wise. You guys were both young and dumb. People marry for age, and that's where a lot of hurt, harm, and this and that. And it's like, oh, let me go get me somebody older. Oh, snap, it works. Why? Because that man was more seasoned. I talk about it like, why were men priests at 30? Because they had some sensibility and some grounding. Think about Isaac and Jacob. They didn't get married to their 30s and 40s. Why? They had to get all that foolishness out their head and be responsible men. They didn't just jump in at 18 like, oh yeah, I'm married. Ain't no man should be getting married until 30, to be, in my opinion. Why? You stupid as hell before 30. Got no experience before 30. You just don't. We just don't. Unless you started with this at a teen, nah. You're gonna be making a lot of mistakes. How old are you?
I'm 29.
Right. But see, you've been dealing with the word your whole 20s. So that was your saving grace.
22, but you know, I was thinking about it while you were talking. Like, I was thinking, why did we last, right? And the only reason I can say that we last was because I didn't move as your typical 19, 20, 21 year old.
But that's my point.
Like, even before the truth.
Even before the truth. You didn't, and then
I didn't move.
The word reinforced certain principles.
Yeah.
But you were more of a traditional person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You were more traditional. I was raised more traditional.
A lot of that's holding you too.
A lot of, you know, remember, our parents are from the island, so they have a little bit more traditional background. They do a lot of things. I'm not saying that they're good and perfect, but they were more traditional in their thinking and how they raised us. So we were raised a little bit more traditional, so we didn't do a lot of the things that you see happening now.
It's like, even back home, like, abortions. I can't think of anybody back home that got an abortion.
Ever got an abortion? I ain't never heard of that.
Yeah.
I never seen no pregnant teenagers when I was in Jamaica as a kid. I don't remember that. We used to kiss girls and do all that weird stuff, right? But I don't remember ever seeing like one of the little girls that I went to school with being pregnant.
I definitely saw pregnant teenagers.
Okay.
But the difference between here and there, when you were pregnant back home as a teenager, that 9 times out of 10, that man was there with you.
Yeah, he was
like
taking
here,
Oh, no.
here it's like
That nigga's running the
knock him up and
streets.
leave him.
Yep.
Knock him up and leave him.
Let me knock this one part out real quick. I just want to talk about marriage real fast. Just give you some of these marriage rates. One of the most important social changes unfolding in the United States over the past half century has been the decline of the institution of marriage. A decline especially steep among blacks. In 1960, roughly 74% of whites were married. And the rate dropped to 56 in 2008. That's a big drop, but not compared to the plummeting marriage rate of blacks. In 1960, 61% of blacks were married in 1960, but by 2008, it was only 32%. We cut our marriage rates in half. Now, let's just really think about that. For us to go all the way into the institution of marriage, that means we was really locked in with that person, because obviously that's what they believe in the world, right? But only 32% went that far? That's insane. Blacks also get divorced far more often and remarry less frequently than whites. Scholars and public observers worry because after all, marriage has historically provided many benefits. Individuals who are married enjoy better physical and mental health. Go look at all your single friends. Ladies, look at your single friends. Get rid of them. They're disgruntled, they're upset, they're bitter. This is the most bitter generation. And I'm not talking about my daughter's age. I'm talking about the older women in this time are the most unhappy. You have the most, you're the most educated of the women, right? The women of this time are the most educated black women. They're the most paid. They're also the most unhappy. Why? Because y'all are not marrying. Y'all are not getting with men. Y'all are marrying and laying down with your degree. Laying down with the boss mentality. You're unhappy. The stats, I mean, it proves it, right? They have more social ties and higher household incomes. Why did our household numbers drop as far as income? We stopped getting together and pooling resources. We accumulate more wealth. Go look at the wealth predictions for the black families in 2030. A black family is only going to be worth $1. You think I'm playing? The black family is going to their wealth is going to be like $60 or something like that in 20 years, 50 years. And a white family, they're up in the hundreds of thousands. Black women with degrees, all you got to do is go to blackstatistics.com and it gives you a black census for black people, education, marriage, divorce, death. Black women with degrees, their wealth is like $1,500 more than a black woman without a degree at the same age. Think about that. How much is the degree worth now? Especially when you went to college and spent $70,000.
Remember, I used to hit the racial wealth thing.
Racial wealth, that's what it
Where it
is.
talks about like the white household. Is
Yeah, there it is.
$122,000.
That's now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Israelite household is worth 1,200.
So you got 122,000, and then you got 1,200.
And I like to ask, who here has 1,200 in their account right now?
Yeah, but see, it's
what I'm saying? And then
explains it.
And then when you go to college,
And wealth is an accumulation of all assets. It's not just money.
Right.
yeah,
It's property. It's appreciating assets. Not your car, because that depreciates, but real estate, things like that.
yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna go into the rest of it, but I'll say this though: the unemployed Israelite is worth more than the employed Israelite.
Yeah. You see that?
It's weird.
It's weird. Now check this out. Let me just finish this. It says they accumulate more wealth and raise children who do better in terms of health and social outcomes than the children of unmarried parents. Because the decline of marriage has been so sharp among blacks, this group has received close scrutiny. Some analysts argue that black women in particular place little value on marriage. Because y'all do. Y'all place little value on marriage because it's better in your mind to be independent. It's better to be unclaimed. It's better to have nobody to tell you what to do. It's better to die alone with a dog. It's better. Oh, I'm a dog mom. What the hell are you talking about? My fur baby. Man, get the hell up out of here with that. What was that?
I remember just a couple of years ago when Latinos he did a class, and I think he asked us, what was it that we wanted to do. I think it was myself and Sister Tanya. We both were like, we really wanted to be housewives, but it has always been frowned upon, you know, for many years to say a housewife.
Yeah, homemaker.
A homemaker. That has always been.
You know what's cold? One of my favorite shows, and now I look at it in a whole different light. Married with Children. Peg was a housewife.
Yeah.
Al made enough money. They clowned it, but he made enough money to support that whole big ass middle class house in Illinois, right? And what did Peggy do? She was a lazy housewife. She cooked salad and dropped cigarettes in it. She vacuumed only when she heard Al pull up. She ate bonbons and watched Oprah, right? She never worked a day in her life. But in those times, what were they telling women? It's bad to be there for your house, for your family. Remember when there was hey, what's your profession? Oh, I'm a homemaker. Remember you used to watch Jeopardy? And we got Sally from Chicago. She's a homemaker. Or you watched Wheel of Fortune? Remember? And it's like, I'm a homemaker. Right? Because that was a real profession. A homemaker? That's the hardest thing a woman can do. To literally build a house. Wait till these other two classes, man. So, next week, what we're going to do. So we talked about those things that they used in those times to destroy the household. Y'all get that, right? Y'all see how those all things correlate? We're going to go into, next week I'll give you a little sneak peeky. We're going to go into how these things subconsciously put in the woman's head, okay, now, because there you had this push in the 80s and 90s for women to go out and get careers and get jobs. But what that did was it pushed, if they had kids, and I remember this. My mom had to go to work. What did we have to do? We had to fend for ourselves. Yeah, the one thing that saved us is that we didn't go outside. The one she like do not ever like she never let us go outside ever, and that's what saved us from being like killers and straight drug dealers, because that's what was out there, and getting chicks pregnant early, right? So I'm gonna go into that, how women sacrifice because the men are gone, the men are on a downcline. They showed you how to sacrifice your children for your own well-being, and what type of children single women raise, right? And then I'm going to go into the next class. What is it that we have to come back to, and how? How do we get back to a woman ordering her house? Yeah. Think about it. I want you to think about this. Single women raise the very men that they hate.
So true.
They raise the very men that they hate. Soft, silky, soft, silky males with no backbones. They just do. Those mama boys, emotional as hell, they raise the women that they are.
God.
Strong, over-emotional, and independent. So that's what we're going to go into. I'm going to show you how they use education. Remember they say a mind is a terrible thing to waste? Knowledge is power. But they used it against us. The push to be educated, the push to go be in their colleges. All it did was put us in debt.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it did. The average person that went to college, they're at least 100,000, 70,000 in debt.
Yep.
And that's years after. I mean, come on. Most people don't even get careers in the fields they went to college for. So so the economical upswing is not even there. You're working minimum wage or low paying jobs, but you got a degree in sociology, but you're not doing that field. You're working at Walmart. Greeting. What's the point? Your degree is obsolete. So anyway, good talk. Listen, when I was reading some of these things and numbers and what we was doing in the 60s, it blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how well off we were financially. But again, we'll continue this next week. Wasn't trying to go this far. But hopefully everybody online got that. No questions, right? I used to have a cookbook, but I can cook off top. Yeah, Kaya, our house was like, she said, see, here it is, Dorcas. She said our house was like that growing up. Thanks to my mom and daddy for being a great provider. Yeah. But she was around at that time. She's a little bit, she's an elder sister that got information at the time. Samakaya, she was around at that time. Or those times. Not to put nobody's age out, but they can give a testament of what those times were as opposed to now. And how did it change? So, with that, we thank everybody for joining us. We want to thank y'all, and we will see y'all. Man, no thumbs down? Y'all are need at least 2 thumbs downs now for the algorithm. Keep a nigga humble, right? But we like to say, what's that?
I read an article on YouTube. They're changing that. They're not gonna be able to do thumbs down no more.
You're not gonna be able to do what?
Thumbs down no more. Like the.
Oh, really?
The YouTube.
Let's see here.
Video.
Oh, I just did it. You're gonna change it up.
It's gonna be implemented.
Oh, because they want everybody to be winners.
That's what I was about to say.
They want everybody to be good.
Nah, it said to change on purpose the algorithm.
Ah.
So things gonna be coming out.
Damn. That's how they manipulate it. All right, y'all. We thank y'all for joining us. Everybody say shalom.
Shalom.